Well, welcome, Cycle 51. This is Civics 101 for IC Stars class number 3. In this class, we're going deep into the topic of civic engagement, what it means and how to do it. And at the same time, we are looking at aspects of leadership, how to lead for justice, change, and service. So we're visiting these two topics back and forth. Okay, great. So I just want to take a minute or two to talk about your assignment, which is due in our final class coming up on Wednesday next, not next Friday, but it's been shifted to Wednesday morning at 9:30. Each intern will get about 6 minutes to do their presentations. Does anybody have any questions or issues or want to maybe get some focus or feedback on some of the ideas that you are working on? Again, we're covering civic engagement, what it is, how to do it, and parallel discussion of leadership. We first talked about civic heart. What is your disposition? What kinds of mindsets, if you will, would be necessary, useful to be a powerful civic actor? And we covered some really great ground, but one of the things that you did land on and lift up was empathy. And we spent some time talking about that as to what that means and how you might become a better empathetic leader. And a number of people said in different ways, listening, deep listening, being humble, being open. And we asked about, well, how could you be a better listener? What does that mean behaviorally? You discussed that. I put in some things into the chat as well as sent you an email summary with some links to resources to how to be a better listener. So it's actually a practicable skill, and it's aspirational. If you think you're not a great listener, you can be a better one. Then we shifted into the civic brain. What kinds of things should you know? What should be in the civic brain? Again, great material, lots of coverage there. But one of the things that you lifted up several times was this idea of, I guess you could say, knowledge, broadly speaking, context, knowledge of oppression, the history of oppression, who oppressed who, right up to the present day. I think that was lifted up several times. And knowledge of, I guess, our collective pasts, knowledge of the civic context of, well, we're in Chicago, so who's the mayor, things of that nature. The 3 branches of government we discussed, as basic knowledge. So in the spirit of adding to the conversation about knowing about the past, I want to introduce you to this guy. This is Khalil Green, often referred to as the Gen Z historian. He was the first Black president of the Yale student body. And he's about 22, I believe. Right now, he's got about 71,000 Instagram followers and over 500,000 TikTok followers. And this is a quote from him. He says, "You don't necessarily grow up thinking you're going to be the first person to do anything in the world. But if you work hard and you dream big, it will happen." So he was interviewed on National Public Radio recently, and let's listen to his interview and then let's talk about it. So here is the interview, and I'll put the link into chat as well. So
here's a question for all you history buffs. How well do you know the American story? Our next guest suggests, take a listen.
Did slavery exist in California? Here's what you probably didn't learn in school. So many of us are taught that California was a free state, but slavery did in fact exist on the West Coast. Many of the white people who migrated to California during the gold rush came from slave states and brought enslaved Black people with them to mine gold.
And Khalil Green joins us now. Welcome to Here and Now.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well. You were the first Black president of the student body at Yale, where you studied history. You're all of 22 years old. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Where did this start? I mean, is there a moment in history, or perhaps the warping of history, that kicked you in the gut and got you to say, I got to start doing something about this?
There was, and it was on Martin Luther King Jr. Day of last year in January of 2021. I saw the FBI Twitter account posted a happy MLK Day tweet. And at the same time, I remembered how it was one of my professors, Beverly Gage, who uncovered that through their COINTEL program, they tried to coerce MLK into committing suicide. So this sort of whitewashing of history was the moment that I realized needed to be told. And that very first video I made about this instance got over 1 million views.
And we have a clip of that. Let's pause and take a listen.
So has anyone else noticed the intense amount of whitewashing that happens during MLK Day? Like, the only quotes from him that you'll see in the mainstream or on social media are the ones that are super positive, super optimistic, and don't mention anything about race or class or any of the other things MLK commented on and fought for. That being said, I just wanted to share some non-whitewashed MLK quotes.
I guess speaking of Dr. King's legacy being misused, misappropriated, we hear so often this quote that, arguably is overused, right? The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I wonder if, in your view, it is so optimistic sounding, and it may suggest that America is in a better place than it actually is.
I think there's definitely different interpretations. It's almost like religious scripture. Like, there can be one passage that's taken to mean different things by different people. And I think maybe the arc of history and of the future does bend towards justice, but that doesn't mean where we are right now is a place where we can be, I guess, where we can just sit down and rest, because there is so much to be done. And when one of MLK's last interviews, I believe it was with NBC, he talks about having tempered realism and combating his optimism with tempered realism and the fear of having integrated Black people into a burning house, and how he feels.
Well, I wanted to play this little clip of our Gen Z historian, but I think we'll just leave it for you to fetch and listen to on your own. I think it's well worth the time. The young man is full of insights and wisdom, and is using the modern technology, in this case, the platform called TikTok, with obviously the short videos, and his use of graphics and his own personality, and the subject matter that he chooses to talk about, which is the whitewashing of history. Now, this is to say, who gets to tell whose story. I think you can appreciate where he's coming from. But does anyone want to speak to the question of, well, what does that have to do with civic engagement? Why would that be something relevant to our conversation? We have this young man who calls himself the TikTok historian. He's talking about pieces of history, especially about African American history and culture, which has either been ignored or what we say is whitewashed. That is to say, dismissed or reported inaccurately. And so the question is, who gets to tell whose story?
The person that usually is the victor tells the story.
Yeah, so the victor, the dominant culture, if you will, maybe that's part of what he's trying to speak to. And so why is that relevant to our exploration of civics?
Because the victor isn't always right.
The victor is not always right. So this idea of force, the power of history, covers up a lot of stuff, right? And therefore, the true story is not told because the speaker is not one of the victors, if you will. So this young man is trying to remind us that there's a lot of history, especially from African American history, that is simply not being told, or being told inaccurately, or being told in such a way as to diminish it, or to make less of it. And so if you listen to his clip, you'll hear him talking about, for example, the contributions of the African American culture to our arts, our entertainment, our fashion, our music, and so forth. And he speaks to that as well. Okay, so yeah, so the lesson here is, don't take anything for granted. Just because it's coming to you from whatever, the above, the authorities, if you will, the victors, just because this a message is has that authority behind it, doesn't mean it's true. And so part of our civic capability is having that critical intelligence and curiosity to say, wait a minute, hold the phone. You know, it ain't necessarily so, right? So I just encourage you to listen to the clip on your own. I was going to play it, but I think we'll move on. Now, I want to send you into small groups, but I'm wondering if that's going to be another technology challenge and cause us kerfluffle here. What if you guys just pick your small groups physically there, don't be online, do the small group work, and then come back online and to report. Is that something that we can handle?
Yes, that
Okay.
sounds good.
All right. So basically, here I'm gonna switch back to sharing my screen so I can tell you what's coming here. In terms of the small group work that I'd like you to do. Yeah. So I'll share the screen. All right. Okay. So what hopefully you're seeing is the slide whose history gets saved. Make sure we'll do it right. Okay. Whose history gets saved is another way of asking the same question of who gets to tell whose story. All right. So what I'd like you to do is to go into the small groups and to use the Jamboard, and I'll put the link to the Jamboard into the chat. I'd still like you to use it. So here it is in the chat. Oh, Donnie's not on Ashy Stars. Okay, well, maybe someone can just phone you up and you can participate via phone. We're going to try to be flexible here. So just know Donnie's not there, so try to help connect them. All right. So the assignment is to go into small groups for 10 minutes and to think of what activities and what sources would upgrade your comprehension to history and context. What activities, what can you do to make yourselves better civic historians? And it's the same drill. Go into 5 groups. I'll leave it to you to sort it out. Each group could have 1 computer, and you'll find the Zoom, the Jamboard at that site. And I will stand by and just be available for any questions. So we'll leave the presentation running, and let's take it from there. So please form your small groups, and let's see if we can make this happen. Okay, we asked you to form small groups and to consider the question how to build our history and context muscles to make us better.
I'm sorry, Tom,
Go
just
ahead.
a second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, cool. Okay, group 1. Someone like to tell us what you came up with, please? Group 1, anybody? George, Jasmine, Esther, Brian?
So the pictures just left everybody's screen. So we're not too sure.
Leave yours on. Try now. This one up here, not your headset.
Tom, can you hear us?
No.
Tom, can you hear us? Tom, can you hear me?
No, I didn't hear. I heard something just now. Oh boy. Well, I guess as long as you hear each other, I guess that's more important than if I hear you. So I'll just let you guys share amongst yourselves, I suppose. That's more important than me being able to hear you. Why don't you just do that? You all have access to the Jamboards. You don't need me. I'll just sit by and
We're setting something up now, Tom.
all right.
Yeah. So one member from each group is just gonna unmute and speak from their microphone.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's start with group 1.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, so we were group number 1. We have research non-conventional history, join book clubs, read and listen from the perspective of the groups concerned, use Wikipedia to research the right way, and then listen to oral history projects or start your own oral history projects with older relatives or anyone you know that was alive during a period you'd like to know more about.
Oh, speak to me about that. That sounds awesome. Has anyone actually done that? No.
Someone in here say yes.
I love that idea.
I think
So
some
you-
people here have done that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you become your own historian, right?
Yeah, I was involved in a project that was done in.
Okay. I love that idea. So the idea of who gets to tell whose story is, well, you get to tell your story. You just, if you have the curiosity and the time and the inclination, join book clubs. I love that one. Which means you got to read more. I love that. Read and listen from, can speak to this one here in yellow. Read and listen from the perspective of the group concerned. Say a little more about that, please. What do you mean by that? Read and listen from the perspective.
Give us 1 second. The person who wrote
Okay.
it, giving them trouble, but they're gonna get online.
Yeah, just use Brian.
You want to get on?
Yeah, we can hear. Or you can talk to.
Okay, so I put down read and listen from the perspective of the group concerned because that is the most unbiased source that we can have. And I've been to things like the Chicago Art Museum where they have oral history as well that you can listen to.
Got it. Has anyone ever heard of the People's History Project?
No.
Okay, well, I'm going to put that in the chat. That's Howard Zinn. And we'll make a note about that to send you some more information about that, because he is someone who was telling stories of American history that nobody wanted to know about. So we'll definitely cue you into Mr. Howard Zinn. Okay, awesome. Let's take a look at group 2. There's a lot here. Group 2, please.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Jesus not a part of our group. Can you? His name's not on our board.
I added it. He right here.
Want me to talk?
Oh, I ain't hear you say
Okay.
nothing.
So we so we have like visit museums. I think that was said. We also have one that I did, which was I think this is elite, is talk to your older family members that lived through it and ask them about their thoughts and how it affected them. All right.
Yes.
I think we have that again reiterated there.
Mhm.
This one I like: pressure oppressors to return stolen artifacts with lost historical value. Listen to indigenous people. Find out what certain laws say and what they did when it comes to segregation and oppression. Listen to old marginalized people. Listen to marginalized people. Start clubs. Read more social studies and civil books about history written by marginalized people. But yeah,
I love this. So there's the idea of going beyond the usual suspects for sources. Just don't pick up the history book that might have been written by old white men, frankly, but try to find these other sources. Maybe the people themselves, like you say, interview people. I think that's really brilliant. The idea of just listening to your elders or the people at the church or your grandmother or something like that, but not approach her like grandma, but like approach her like an expert, like what she lived through. And I actually did that for my mother-in-law, who was passed away at 94, who lived obviously through World War II. And I never had an elder in my life through the circumstances of my family. So Joan, that was her name. I wanted to know what music she listened to as a young girl in the 30s. I wanted to know what it was like being married to a young soldier and following her husband in World War II. And what was it like for him? He was serving in the Pacific. What was it like waiting for him to come back? What was food rationing and food stamps? I mean, they had these tickets, these little stamps to get food. What was it like having to go on recycling and growing food in your backyard? These things all happened during World War II. And I just really wanted to know from Joan about this. And of course, her own children never asked her those questions, you know? So I was endlessly fascinated to have this older person was completely with it, you know, physically and mentally.
They say every time an old person dies, a library dies with them.
Oh, whoa, wait, I'm gonna put that in chat. Every time an elder passes, a library passes with them. Okay, that's deep. But you get what I'm saying. It's like you have some sources of this kind of knowledge of history close at home. I guess that's what the point we're making. Also, pressure oppressors to return relics. Yeah, because white-driven sociology and anthropology was taking relics, skulls, funeral remains, other sacred objects away from lands, indigenous lands, not just in this country, but all over the globe, right? Just taking them, put them in glass cases, writing these sterile descriptions of them, treating the people from whom they were taken as if they were kind of quaint, you know, oh, aren't they these little savage people, you know? That whole attitude is so through American science, not just American science, I'd say Western science, anthropology, sociology, archaeology. And like a lot of things, these sciences are trying to come to grips with the reality of racism and that kind of oppressor's mindset. And so if you read modern archaeology and sociology magazines, where the authors are people of color, it's a completely different attitude, if you will, from what you might have read in those same journals. not too long ago.
I just thought about one. I forgot to add it, but when you was talking about like studies in schools, also I encourage y'all to look into the history of the top colleges, especially specifically in this country, and how they benefit off of Black and brown bodies. There are a lot of colleges that are well-renowned, prestigious colleges that only got so far with where they got simply because of the heinous crimes that they did against Black people during slavery. For example, they used to literally steal cadavers. Cadavers is like dead body parts from enslavers. And if not steal them, enslavers would sell them to them. And that's how the medical department in a lot of these prestigious colleges got as far as they did anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, and connected to that point are the fact that not just some colleges, but many well-established American businesses were based on the wealth from enslaved people.
This is wow.
Yeah, so it's not just so that's kind of the ugly side of American capitalism, is you really can't unpack the story of American capitalism without looking into the history of slavery, frankly. And so there's a book I'll recommend called Cotton is King. I'll put that. I'll put
I
that
also
in.
recommend the book Their Price for a Pound of Flesh. It's a really good book. It literally goes through like a slave's value in the period of their lives. So like when they're adolescent to when they're an elder, and what their value was considered back in the day. But yeah.
Very relevant. Thank you. So again, to the point that we're trying to make here about the context and really being a critical player in this space, if one would take a class on economics at, say, the University of Chicago, I don't think they're going to talk about any of this, right? They're going to say, well, here's how you market capitalize the blah, 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 and how, stocks go up and down. And I'm sure they're quite smart. And a lot of the people that go to the University of Chicago's School of Business have become very successful. But what we're saying here today is hold the phone. You guys are missing something when you speak of the economy and capitalism without reference to these points that you're just making. You really can't get a handle on it unless you confront these unpleasant truths. And I think that's one of the points that we're trying to make in this class and in this discussion of history. This is very valuable. Let's go on to group 3, please.
Okay. So group 3, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So for group 3, it was myself, Angel, Tack, and Cordell. So one of the ones that a couple of ones that we had, first we had record history. That's kind of similar to what a lot of other groups had. I know, for an example, my mom recorded my great grandmother one day, and she just kind of did it just to do it, just kind of get some history from her regarding the family and just like her life growing up in slavery, and then like coming to Chicago and all this stuff. And that was like really inspirational for a lot of family members once like they figured out that we had that. Another thing that we had was non-traditional history books, and that kind of goes along with what Group 2 and Sunday was saying about like reading history books that were written by marginalized people, engage in community events. So to pretty much try to like talk to people in your community and get their personal history, where they come from, where their where their ancestors come from, and things like that. Ask questions to those who are more closely related to events, which that can be kind of tricky sometimes. I don't want to say hard. It can be kind of tricky sometimes, but that's like another good one that you can do. So you can kind of get like that point of view from somebody that was actually there, that actually witnessed it. And then the last one was get the point of view from the other side. And so pretty much what that it means is the simple one is get the point of view from um, get the point of view from the people that weren't the winners, that didn't write the story, just to kind of see like if there are some differences between like what was written down and what actually happened, or what they experienced, or things like that.
Got it. Cool. I love that. Again, there's a sense of this active participation as you're seeking out these sources, whether they're what you call non-traditional, from the losers, if you will, or your own elders, the people in your community, like at a community event. All this is a good muscle to build. So I guess you could say there's a question of having a critical intelligence, not just accepting the given dogma, whatever that is. Say that capitalism is great and this is the market can do no wrong. That's the kind of thinking that you would get from the University of Chicago's business school. We don't accept that. There's a lot of cracks in that plaster. And again, this idea of curiosity, like I'm open to listening to people, whether they're the non-traditional source or my own grandmother, that they have something to teach me. They have something to tell me that's valuable. All right, so those are several kinds of skills or mindsets that would be underneath this idea of building your history muscles. Ask question at those that are more closely related to the events. Yeah, that's going to the source. Going to the source. I know that some of the young activists I work with will travel to the South and other places where there's oppressive events, and they'll talk to people in the community and be in solidarity with them, and not just stay here in Chicago and read the news, but they actually traveled to different places when incidents of violence happened. They went right to the community. Okay, very good stuff. And please, group 4.
You can hear me, right?
Yep.
So what we said was conversate more on the topic, empower and listening to indigenous orders, use social media as a platform to spread more info on the topic, educating yourself more on the topic, share articles that are about the topic, creating presentations on the topic, bring historian to a workshop to speak about the subject, create systems to reserve the history, make sure to hear from those with the unique experience, share documentaries on the topic, engage in events to celebrate the culture, maximize the power of the mass media. Yes.
Let's see, empowering. Yes, again, this is like at the same theme of listening to people who have been ignored. I hear that. Talk about the power of the mass media. Now, how does that fit in here?
Whoever wrote it.
Okay, so some years back, I watched a video by Chimamanda Adichie. She's a writer, a Nigerian writer. She was talking about the danger of the single story and how the Western world see Africans as monsters and even treat them as monsters till date, and think they don't have things like technology. So, and that is solely due to the fact that publication, both printed and virtual publication, is mostly done by the white power. So empowering the less privileged people, the people with original story, and letting them maximize in the mass media. And when I say mass media, I'm not just saying social media, because social media is limited to digital means. Mass media could also include print media, speakers, and other types of media, would also help to inform people the danger of the single story and let the story from the other side get to other people. So that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, so it's not just, use your social media for your own personal Twitter account, or make a video like you could do with your phone, but sort of up the game a little bit, like the Gen Z historian, in a way, is creating his own mini television series using TikTok, and he's got about 500,000 people watching him. So he didn't have to go to a studio. He didn't have to be hired by ABC News or anything like that. He didn't have to get a book contract, though I'm probably betting that all will happen for this young man. But he said, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to tell history the way I see it.
Can you
And I'm
hear
just going to
me,
use.
Tom?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes.
1 second, Tom. You're breaking up.
Oh. I guess.
Can you hear me,
Is this a
Tom?
little better? Is this a little better now?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I was just expanding on that point by saying, yes, make a move, make a movie, publish your own book, and you're seeing a lot of new storytellers, I guess, come to the form with their own movie companies.
Tom, you're
And,
starting to break. I wanted to add something to what I said, but you're starting to break. So I don't
Okay,
know
ahead.
if you could hear us or you could hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I assume you could hear me. Now, there's some things like, okay, would it be rude if I talk over Tom?
It's still breaking up.
Okay, so there's Can you hear me, Tom?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, so I was talking about some things that go beyond the digital media, the social media. So I was talking about subliminal brainwashing. Some issues came up when a black lady played Ariel in was it Disney movie, Little Mermaid, and people were like, no, da 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 da. And you even see Arabs that are not white or black, they had to start saying, hey, this is not the Ariel I know. So things like this are done from programming from childhood. And that's why the cartoon industry is very powerful, because when you start brainwashing children,
Oh, I missed you now. I'm missing you. I think I got your point. And
no, I
speaking of the
wasn't. I
Black
was trying to
Ariel,
explain subliminal. Okay.
I think I got your point,
My
Michael.
computer. Okay. Okay. I was trying to talk about subliminal brainwashing and how the media goes beyond just the social media. So, for example, when I was little, I watched a lot of cartoons. So, as all of us, and at the childhood phase, brainwashing us that the standard look of a male or a female must not be fat or must have a particular color, like most of the heroes we see in the cartoon, is a big deal, And that's why I think it's inclusion shouldn't just be in adult things, even in the programming like Little Mermaid. Why people having issues that Ariel is black, we need to also add into the programming of these little ones. That's why I said the mass media is very important. What the young ones that grow see is also important too.
Absolutely. Even cartoons should be inclusive and reflect the reality of the world that we're in. Who says a mermaid can't be black? It's a made up creature. So the mermaid could be blue, green, black, brown. Why not? Yeah, it just happened that the people drawing the cartoons for the last 75 years happen to be white men. So yes, it's again, I would say the issue of the so-called issue of the Black Ariel is just another way of asking the story of who gets to tell whose story. So as soon as you have a black female animator, it's telling, putting characters in her animations that reflect her life and her experience, children watching will go, oh, okay, there's a black elf, there's a green a goblin, a white mermaid. What? Yes, it all makes sense to me. So yes, absolutely. Okay, all this is most excellent, and I think that concludes our review of how to build your history civic muscle. And again, I'd invite you to reflect on some of these great ideas. And if one or more of them appeal to you, go ahead and do it. I wish we had more time together, because I could see us doing maybe an interview project where everyone goes out and interviews one elder in their life and then returns to the class to share their insights. I think that would be amazing, personally. But I think we made some good points here. Thank you to getting through all the technology. Really appreciate it. All right. Let's see. Now, let us move on to our next discussion, which is a break. Yes, we're going to take a break.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that at TED. Thanks.
Being a follower. What's that about?
I feel like being a follower is mostly looked at negatively, but like in this case, it shows the positivity in being a follower, because if nobody ever followed that leader, then there would have never been a movement.
Yes, yes, it's being a follower is an underrated aspect of leadership. So we can't all be the first person to do something. That doesn't make any sense. But if you're the second or third, it's very important. And that requires courage as well. Maybe it's a different kind of courage as opposed to the first person who was up there. But the point is, you are voting yourself into the movement. That's part of what we're trying to say here in this discussion of leadership. The kind of leadership that we are advocating requires willing followers. It requires, I guess I'm saying being a leader is a function of the permission of the followers. And I think that's a little unusual way of talking about leadership. Normally we're saying, you know, I'm the boss, you're the employee, you do what I say. I'm the colonel, you're the sergeant, you do what I say. I have rank on you. But this kind of leadership that we're speaking about here today means that anyone can be a leader if they can convince or model behavior that inspires others. So would you say that the first person to jump up and dance with the shirtless dancing guy was inspired? Yes, I'm saying that the follower, the reason why he or she follows, why they follow the leader is because they are inspired. And so I now vote, I willingly vote or accord to become a follower because I have been inspired. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that, I mean, from the sound of what you're saying, yeah, that does make sense.
Okay. The follower makes the leader possible. In our speaking of this kind of servant leadership. Okay, so it's a fun way to get at the topic. I just love that video, and I'm sorry we had the technical issues, but I think it's very instructive, and I laugh every time I see it. But I'm reminded that one person standing up, pontificating, and making grand gestures does not a leader make. That individual becomes a leader when others come to that person and they join. Now I'm a leader. Before I was just some person making speeches, you know, making posturing. But if Devon or Elise or Angel or any others go, hey, you know what? That makes sense to me. That touches me. I'm with you. I'm gonna do your crazy dance. I'm gonna dance with you. Now I'm a leader. But you know what? If I abuse the privilege, right, you can withdraw. That's the other side of this. So we have to be dancing together, is what I'm saying in this kind of leadership. All right. Okay, now it's time to turn our attention to the next form of, or the last bucket, if you will, of leadership and of civics in our little world. So I will share the screen one more time. So reminding, you know, that we have touched on the first domain of civic heart. Then we talked about the civic brain, what should be in the brain. Now our time is to talk about the civic muscle. That is to say, the doing of civics. So I think we're gonna forget about trying to go into small groups. It's just too much work here today. And we'll just kind of keep the microphone open and let's try to hear from everybody in turn. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go around the horn. I'm going to call on you to just give us your thoughts about how would we build a civic muscle? What I'm looking for are responses like activities now or accomplishments. Think of that idea of activities, accomplishments, or things that you have built or could be built or made as a way to build your civic muscle. And remember, we gave you a survey, and we're going to discuss the survey in just a moment when we asked you all to report on your civic activities. So let us do this, and I'll put this into the chat as well, just to remind you of the kinds of questions that we're looking for here. So we're saying activities you've done, accomplishments in this civic space, or things that you have built or run. Now, not just your personal experience, but again, we're thinking generally. So yes, if you've done some of this, great. But if you haven't, we're asking you to think in this broad manner.
Hello. Put me on the spot being first. Didn't even have any time to think. No. Oh, give me a moment here. Can you hear me? Okay. I remember an activity that I was in. I was in a Rotary sponsored leadership camp when I was younger, and I kind of count that as an activity that kind of put me on a path towards more civic muscle. I remember in that camp we spent like a weekend just kind of discussing different ways to approach leadership, as well as how to like engage with others in like different various settings. So there's my example.
Yes, thank you. So this would be sort of under the heading of taking a workshop or being in some kind of group experience that's very intentional. So this was like a leadership training thing. There was activities, there was intense discussion. I mean, it was very intentional, obviously, and designed, and therefore somewhat of prestige. It's kind of like not everyone can get into this thing. So you had to want to be in it. And it took a lot of time. And again, that is a very good example of how one could build a civic muscle. And I would dare say that if you talk to the young people after that experience, their brains are changed. There are things on their minds that weren't on their minds before. And I'm gonna suppose that it was a very meaningful experience. Devon, what do you got?
So I guess what I can use is I did some work with my aunt a few years ago. The first thing we did was we went into the communities. We were like giving away like school supplies and kind of just like talking to like parents in our community just to see like what they were looking forward to as far as like the school year, and what they kind of hope would happen, and just like their kind of expectations for the education that their children were getting. The other thing is we worked in Chicago Heights and also Waukegan to get 2 charter schools open because the quality of their education was really bad in those areas from the numbers that we looked at. So we were able to, again, just kind of like go around and like talk to the people in that community and like kind of get their experiences within their community and see like what they liked about the school system that they had and what changes they wanted to see made, and how they were feeling like with their children's like success within like the school districts out there and stuff like that. So just being able to like be a part of like getting like that school opened up so that those communities had like better opportunities for better education, like that experience was just like overall just like something that kind of built my civic muscle, I would say, because now it's like I'm more open to like wanting to like do more things like that, like get things like started in like these underserved communities, like better school choices, after school programs and stuff like that, just to kind of give those people like a leg up.
Awesome. Well, we could spend the whole class unpacking that experience of like how it got organized, the flyers that you wrote. What did you say when you went door to door? How did you get the land? How did you get the funding? I mean, that is a huge project, my friend. That is a big project to go from nothing to having to open a school, not just one school, but 2 schools. All that listening that was going on in there, the building of your collective power, right? To make your demands not just heard, but and acted upon. that is a huge civic muscle that you have there. You'd be like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the civics in here.
No, no. I didn't, because most of like the work as far as like getting the school actually built, that was more so like my aunt and like her team and who she was contracted with. I was more so just like I just got the experience like going out into the communities and talking to the families and stuff like that and getting like their opinions and then taking it back to the people that were building the school. But it's still a great experience, just to be a part of that. It was still
absolutely great. Well, you were part of it. And so, if we had more time, I'd bring your aunt to the class actually and get her to tell her story. And again, that would be the person interview, right? So you kill two birds with one stone, go interview your aunt and make a podcast out of it and show the flyers and talk to the neighbors, take a picture of the school, talk to one of the kids who's in the school who like, hey, does this school change your life? Is this school, helpful to your life? I mean, there's so many things that you could make from just this one little story right here, that it could be like a five episodes, in a podcast that, and then at the end of the day, it's like, well, so what is the lessons learned? So, I mean, it's one incident, but I think there might be universals, that people could learn from and take away. Not just in Chicago, but really in many other cities. So, boy, that's huge, man. Thank you for sharing that. Danae, what do you have for us in this space, please?
I would just say that I built my civic muscle just by working in customer service. Most recently, I worked over the phone for unemployment. And then it just really gives you a really wide perspective on just how what type of things that people have going on. Like I had people calling in, and it's hard to, it was really hard for me personally because I'm the type that wants to help everybody, but just knowing that I couldn't. And you had people calling in crying, people calling in saying that they had cancer, people calling in saying that they were literally homeless or they were on the way to being homeless. Somebody said that they just got their car taken away. So it was just a really hard experience for me just because I want to help everybody, but just ultimately knowing that I couldn't. But it really did open my perspective up just to, just it kind of humbled me down in a way because I had to think just how fortunate I am, and with the things that I have and the things that others do not. So it was because I was the type that was like, oh, maybe I could cash up you some money or something, but you couldn't step outside your job, and I can't cash up everybody money. You got to take care of yourself too. But it really opened me up to a new perspective of just how fortunate I am for the things that I have, and just to that not be sick or not have you're not dealing with cancer like other people are. You're not on the street, you're not homeless. It's people are really out there really struggling at this point in time. And we got to be grateful for the things that we have. So that working in customer service alone really humbled me and gave me a new perspective.
So that comes back to the first things we were talking about in this class about having the humble perspective.
Yes.
That it's not about me, or as you said, I have more than I realized. I am fortunate. I have many blessings. And I think that is a beautiful thing to realize and share, regardless of your station, oh, I don't have any money or I have a lot of money, whatever that might be, but to still realize your gratitude to the Great Spirit, your gratitudes and things that you do have. And it doesn't necessarily help to say to a friend who's down to say, well, you have it better than 99% of the people on the planet. That doesn't necessarily help your friend, but it is kind of true. And it when you feel it and realize it, I think it is a humbling thing, and it is part of our work, I think. So yes, listening to those stories of people who are in dire circumstances, I want to help them. I can't help everybody.
Exactly. Well, even though I don't have a lot, I still like to be a blessing to others in any way that I can. Because if you have it, why not give? Even if you don't have a lot, just giving back all in all. I feel is one way that you can be of, that you can be of service to the people. We like Daya said a long time ago when she said like it's not enough. She like where did the love go? Like where
That's
did the
right.
love go? Where we're all willing to help each other, instead of instead of saying this is mine. Like why not like this is ours? Or just being able to help your fellow neighbor.
Well, that takes us back to some of the first points that were made in this class about where is the love and the need for civic love. We at the Civic Lab believe that absolutely. So yeah, to be a blessing in the Jewish faith, there's a thing called tikkun olam. Tikkun olam means to repair the world. And in the Jewish faith, they say if you save one life, if you help one person, you have saved the world. You've helped the world. So that's my background. Yeah. So again, I can't make you feel that. I can't force you to be a blessing. That doesn't make any sense. We just try to prepare the ground. You know what I'm saying? Prepare the ground to plant the seeds. Put the water in there. Put the sun on the flowers, and hope the flowers grow. I can't make the flower grow. Jesus, Mr. Sandoval, please share with us.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Say the question one more time.
We're asking the question of how to build our civic muscle. What kinds of things? I'm not necessarily asking you to report on what you have done, though that's fine if you wish to. But how to build our civic muscles? What should we be building? What should you be able to do? Should you be able to know how to run a meeting? Things like that. Where does your brain land?
Well, for me, what comes to my mind building my social muscle would be kind of like, I guess you could say like interviewing my older family members and asking them like what they had to go through to come over here to this country, or what they had to endure in Mexico and the other country, just things like that.
Yeah.
So from
Awesome.
their personal experiences, you know.
You're right. So again, you have the source material close at hand.
Yeah.
Why not ask?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they might be surprised to hear your curiosity.
Yep.
And to share maybe stories that they had never told you before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't want to know. You didn't want to know. They didn't want to tell you. It would be too hurtful or shocking, or maybe too painful for them even to recall.
Yeah. No, yeah.
And at the same time, it might also bring memories of love and tenderness and sort of nostalgia and things that are not just kind of mixed in with the. We sorry we had to leave. There were some bad circumstances, but at the same time, I'm remembering my grandmother. I'm remembering the house I was born in. I'm remembering the garden or whatever.
Yeah.
So you never know.
A mix, an array of mixed emotions.
Absolutely, I would expect. Devon, what do you got in this session?
I believe he's in the bathroom.
Okay.
But also Devon went already.
He what?
Devon went already. Yeah.
All right.
He did already?
Rachel, how about yourself?
Rachel.
She's unmuting.
Okay, can you hear me, Tom?
Yep.
For me, it will probably be a personal journey first, just so I can, I guess, relearn the history that was taught to me, the false history. So I think it's our duty to kind of like, since we are in the age of information, to increase our own knowledge and really go back and find out the true knowledge of who we are. And that can help in different endeavors.
So to get grounded. So at the Civic Lab, we believe in something called the cycle of liberation. And we'll tell you more about that in the follow-up. But the cycle of liberation starts with self-knowledge. As a change maker or someone purporting to lead justice or whatever, trying to make things better, if you're not down with yourself, if you're not at peace with yourself and have good self-knowledge, I'm not sure I want you out there leading. So I think that's a super amazing insight. looking inward, checking your own self, myself. Where are my prejudices? What do I know or don't know? What things should I be strong on? Where am I weak? Those questions are sometimes hard to ask, but as civic makers, yes, we must start by looking inward first. I wish we had enough time to go around the circle, but I'm just going to share the screen again and remind you of what you all said that you have done. So again, this is from that survey, remember, that you filled out a couple of weeks ago. So number one thing that everybody said they did is vote. So at the time of the survey, I think 19 people took the survey and about 17 of the 19 voted. The next thing that people said they did was donate to a charity. So again, that was just about everybody who filled out the survey. Donation to a charity, very easy to do in America. You can click online, you can drop money in the box, for a church, etc. The next thing that was popular was I have volunteered for a community group or church. As I would expect that to be very popular. That was just about 14 of the 19. So that is very prevalent in cycle 51. Then comes, I have used social media in some way for civics. Again, I expected that a high reporting on that because you're all technologists. Then after that is, I have participated in a public protest. Good for you. That one surprised me. And I guess we'll have time maybe in our final class to someone to share a story of what did you do? Then after that was, I have participated in a boycott. So you have withheld your money from a product or services that displeased you. You're trying to make a point by withholding your money. Then comes, I have participated in a boycott. So it's the opposite. You have sought out a product or service in order to reward them. And then only one person started a club or led a civic project. That was Hidayah. And I wish I had time to ask you what you did, but maybe we'll get you to share in our next class. What did you build? And then nobody has run for office. Well, I'm not surprised. You're young yet. I have run for public office, and it was quite transformational. All right, that's what you reported. Now, in our last class coming up, you will have the microphone, and you'll be making your presentations. So I'm going to talk to Larry and ask him if it's all right if I come in person and we'll all see each other in the flesh, so to speak. Anyway, that's the end of our session number 3. I am sorry, so sorry that we had such technical difficulties. I still felt it was valuable and you all contributed really mightily, and I do so appreciate it. All right, have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next week for our final session of Civics 101. Stay healthy out there.
Next Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.